We hunted this field yesterday, and it was probably the fewest geese I've ever seen in a snow goose hunt up here. And now, just 24 hours later, there's probably 8,000 in it, and birds as far as you can see headed right for it. You can't beat them. You can't outguess them. They make you want to bang your head against the steering wheel. Muddy mess. But over the years, kind of developed a love-hate relationship with snow geese. You love to hunt them, but by God do I hate them.
A guy told me a long time ago about snow goose hunting that the first time you go out, you're going to hunt them, you know, just like you would any other kind of waterfowl. But from any time forward after that, it's going to become revenge.
Hunted the X, we've chased the flight lines, it's worked, it hasn't worked, so we're going to try something different, set up right next to a feed, see if we can pull some stragglers.
I don't necessarily think there's an absolute X when you're snow goose hunting. These birds field hop a lot.
You know, scouting is probably the most important aspect of a successful snow goose hunt. But no matter how many miles you put in, how many hours you drive, the snow geese always seem to win. You can't outguess them, you can't outsmart them. You know, they use a great line coming off a roost one day, the next day they go 180 degrees in a different direction. They use a field one day, they eat it all out, they go to a different field the next day. You have to make your best educated guess as to where you think that hot spot is going to be tomorrow. And this year was probably the hardest year of snow goose hunting we have had in central Illinois. There was a number of things that were working against us. You know, it all started last year with the drought. The crops went in early, the crops came out early. 95% of the fields up there were tilled under. So not only do you have a lack of yield from the drought, so what little food there is has been tilled under. You know, luckily, our buddy Chris that we hunted with last year had left 2 corn stubbled fields. If you've ever hunted snow geese, they just seem more likely to drop into a stubble field. They know that food is going to be there, and it allows you to hide your layout blinds a lot easier with that 10, 12-inch stubble. It really breaks up the outlines. And without that corn stubble field, I don't know that you could have rated this snow goose season really a success. The weather was horrible. You know, all across the Midwest there was more snow in the month of February than we've really had in almost 2 years. And if you want, you know, good snow goose weather, you want warm, you want south winds, you want sunny skies. We had kind of that weather one day. We had our best hunt was on a Saturday and it got close to 50. We had a south wind at like 10, 12 miles an hour and it was clear. That was the one day where we saw a steady migration. It was by no means an awesome day, but there were birds moving throughout the entire day. And I think another factor of the drought and the lack of food, the snow geese up there this year were feeding in fields all day. They'd come out off the roost, you know, right off the bat in the morning. They'd drop into a field and they would field hop within that mile section the rest of the day. They'd go back to roost at dark. There was no morning, go back to roost midday, afternoon flight. It didn't happen. They sat in the fields the entire day. So really, after your first, 2 hours of the morning, if you didn't have a day where they were going to migrate, you were pretty much done. We never really had a good afternoon hunt other than the migration day. And there's nothing that you can do, there's no scouting that can fix that. That's Mother Nature.
Typically when we set out to scout for snow geese, I mean, we have a pretty good idea of a general area where they're going to be in, and we'll look for the mile-long strings in the sky. If for whatever reason we can't see any of those, I mean, we'll hit the ground running and look for major feeds and fields. I don't necessarily think there's an absolute X when you're snow goose hunting. These birds field hop a lot, at least where we are. So if we can't necessarily hunt the field that they're last using, we're okay with hunting a field right next to where they are, or at least in the middle of a congregation, because chances are there's going to be a field a quarter mile off where there's, a couple thousand here. Same thing, in the opposite direction, there's going to be a couple thousand there. If we can't get into the field that they're using at the moment for the following day, we don't have a problem setting up right in the middle of the congregation, and we'll go from there and run our chances.
Always with snow goose season, we had to stay mobile. Any snow goose season, any snow goose hunter, anywhere, you've got to stay mobile. You got to stay on your toes. It makes it tough when you're fighting the mud. Luckily we had the new windsock bags from Bag'em this year, and instead of fighting giant Rubbermaid totes of Silosock decoys, we were able to use the Bag'em windsock bags. So you stuff 180 Silosocks in there. You could throw a bag on your right arm or a bag on your left arm, and out in the field you go. Instead of being wide-armed and struggling to carry that big Rubbermaid tote, you've got it on your arm. If the ground was frozen or if it had been dry, we're throwing those bags on the ATV rack system and we're driving them right out to where we need to be. We hunted that stubble field a couple times and had some good hunts out of it, but we were always paying attention to, is there possibly a better option? We were looking for better lines. We chased some X's, we got underneath what we thought were some good flight lines, and it just never panned out like we thought it would. We ended up, one day it rained, we scouted, there was a bunch of birds back in that stubble field. We hunted it that following day and really didn't see much of anything. It was probably the fewest snow geese I have ever seen. We go to bed that night knowing that we're going to sleep in and scout in the morning, and 7,000 or 8,000 snow geese back in that stubble field. And the way these geese were working while we were up there is There was no afternoon flight. They'd come out to feed in the morning, they'd sit inside of the mile section the entire day. They'd just hop fields.
Setting up in a field, a bunch of birds in it this morning. They've relocated about a half mile away. We killed them in this field a few days ago. You know, we've hunted the eggs, we've chased the flight lines. It's worked, it hasn't worked, so we're gonna try something different and set up right next to a feed. See if we can pull some stragglers.
So by the time that we decided to hunt these geese, they were in a different field inside the section, so we set up right there next to them, just as a different alternative, you know, something that we hadn't tried yet, thinking maybe it'll work. And we had a decent afternoon, you know, it wasn't awesome, but we shot some more geese. But the season just didn't play out like we thought it would. They are the most frustrating, finicky bird known to man. There's nothing you can do to change them. I mean, it's a product of their sheer numbers. You know, the average age of a snow goose, 12, 13 years old. They've got some knowledge, they've got some mileage on them, and we were spoiled in Canada with what we came out of there killing. And you can spend all those hours, all those miles scouting snow geese and feel like, you know, you're making your best educated guess as to what's going to happen tomorrow, but they're wild animals. They fly in giant flocks. They're smart, and you know, no matter what a person says, oh, those geese are dumb. No, they're not. They are very smart creatures, and they would not get to the overpopulated status that they're at if they were not as smart as they are.
We got another 45 minutes of daylight left. I got the little girl with me. She was insistent upon going out and seeing snow geese. So we've had fun, and what, baby? You want my phone? All right. What's the darker one? You were too slow. We beat you here.
Hey, I found some geese. That's because I went a circle and went north.
Standing on the ice.